We're being live streamed around the globe this morning, so please sit up straight, mind your P's and Q's, and no swearing. My name, by the way, is Damien Bates. I was a one-time newspaper editor and editor-in-chief. I'm currently a company director, chairman of a marketing company, a B2B marketing company called Fifth Ring. I'm MD of my own media, leadership, and public affairs consultancy, and also about to become an author. We're shortly going to hear from some true industry giants. Today we have Thomas Sunde, VP Technology at Subsea 7. Please forgive me if I mispronounce that, Thomas. David Currie, Chief Executive Officer at Proserv. Steve Hamilton, Technology Manager at Xodus. And Rod A. Larson, President and CEO of Oceaneering International. We'll also be joined for a Q&A later from David Clarke, Energy Director at Lloyd's Register, and of course, the legendary Alfie Cheen, CEO of Ace Winches. But we're grateful to our platinum sponsor, Ace Winches, for their support today, so thank you, Alfie and his team. Gold sponsor, Lloyd's Register, and silver sponsors, ICR, Leidos, DeepMiner, and SQA. So thank you all. The subject of today's event is Capability in New Technologies, Business Transformation in Oil and Gas. And so leading us off is going to be Alfie Cheen to say a few words, and then we'll have David after that. So Alfie, it's over to you.
Okay, morning everybody. I think I don't need to be introduced again. Damien certainly put us on the spot. So, thanks for joining us here this morning. I'm a founder and CEO of Ace Winches up in Turriff in Aberdeenshire. And Ace Winches, we specialise in lifting, pulling, deploying applications and solutions. So you think, oh yeah, it's just a winch. Here he is blogging an old winch again. But in all honesty, winching is a science, and it is at a lot of times underappreciated in the marketplace. And what can be done in winching. So we pride ourselves on delivering high quality service with engineered attention to detail, encompassing only the strictest safety standards. Over the past 4 years has been tough, and as such we've listened to our customers, because our customers are saying you need to be looking at doing things differently. We need to do things differently, save money and become much more efficient. But combining the skills of our expert team and a large fleet of rental equipment, we can support entire subsea construction and riser installation projects, developing solutions, supporting clients' specific requirements. We've embraced technology and have developed revolutionary new products to meet challenging specifications, particularly here in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'll speak about this later. I'm going to play a short video first, which highlights our evolution in the design to delivery capabilities. Our client Log required an innovative new product for the installation and pulling of 2 steel catenary risers in a 2,000 metre water depth. And the challenge for this particular project was a limited deck space on the platform. So we successfully delivered a revolutionary and bespoke new product, adapting existing linear winch technology and fitting it to a vertical frame whilst still delivering a 550-ton vertical pulling force. On the day at the races, I think we pulled something like 450 tonnes, but the whole system was tested to over 600 tonnes. So we're very, very proud of that latest development. We're the first company to develop a product of this kind. It involved an early engagement with the client and working together at every stage from design to delivery. So in summary, we provided a brand new innovative product with a continuous pull-in feature, allowing for increase in operational efficiency whilst still maintaining extremely high levels of safety. Next slide, please. So, slide 3, steel catenary riser and umbilical pull-in packages for the Vito project. So following the success of the Buckskin project, we've since been awarded 2 multi-million-pound contracts in the Gulf here for Shell Vito and BP Mad Dog Phase 2 by the major contractor Subsea 7. The Vito contract covers the engineering, project management, manufacture, operational people, and installation of a single 14-inch export flow line, 2 12 3/4 and 2 10 3/4 steel catenary riser production flow lines, complete with umbilical system to a depth of 4,100 feet. So the challenges we face when coming up with such a solution involve space constraints and ability to use the same winch for multiple platforms. So the operators themselves have moved forward and looking at smaller, lighter floating facilities, and that is what's bringing the new challenge. The old conventional ways of putting very large lifting equipment on board these vessels is pretty much a no-no today. I'll click on to the next one, please. So Mad Dog Phase 2. The Mad Dog Phase 2, again, it's six steel catenary riser and 3 flexible risers. And the main challenge, again, including extreme deck space. We can see the picture on the right-hand side, and this is a world first again. What we're actually doing is we're hanging a linear winch vertically off the side of the platform. So we've made a yoke system at the top, and again, so little or no deck space required for this. So a fantastic innovative engineering team come up with this unique design, and we're pretty proud of that. So a fair wind, I think, will be providing Subsea 7 and BP with a significant move forwards in the methods of pulling in these risers. So, why did the teams at Subsea 7, BP and Shell choose ACE? I think one, our engineering team working with the clients during concept and planning, and I'll say early engagement. Can't emphasize enough to get close to, no matter what service line you're in, getting close to the operator. You have to get close. It's very difficult. We all know the permafrost, and we all know how difficult it is to get close to that operator. But it's absolutely paramount if small to medium enterprises are going to make a difference in the long term for the operator. So getting close to them and working with them right through the design to delivery phase. So again, our creative team, they work to engineer that products and provide what we would call real innovation. The total solution that we're providing in manufacturing, testing, operations and managing the overall project right through to delivery. But that important part, again, working with the client so that they have input in the development so that the results will be exactly what they're looking for, exactly what the project it needs, and maintaining that cross-business alignment at every step all the way through. So I'll plug the linear winch a wee bit here. The benefits of the linear winch and range, a higher line pull to weight ratio, it's continuous pull, it's a reduced footprint, shorter installation and operation times, again saving the operators valuable start-up time and production time, getting that fast oil on stream quickly. So we aim to create value for the clients through active involvement, as I said earlier, at all stages of the project. We pride ourselves in being that problem solvers, and this means we can cater for any particular specific requirement. So I think that's pretty much it. We're a total solution provider across multiple divisions, including engineering and the hire in the business. So come and see us at booth 1439, and we'll see if we can come up with a solution for you. And on our stand, we have a brand new interactive presentation where you can look at all the applications and all the different markets we work in. Right now, we're involved in a very interesting project in the Cascading Bridge out in Turkey, the world's longest suspension bridge, 3.8 kilometres long. So we've been working there for over a year now. And so we're just looking at other areas where we can use our technology and where we can help a customer solve a problem. So thank you very much. I'll go back to Damien and enjoy Houston. Thank you.
Next up is David Currie. And many of you will know David is obviously CEO with Proserv, and he has over 30 years of experience in the sector, including previous stints as CEO of JDR Cable Systems, and of course UK President of ACCA Solutions. You'll have to have one of the finest HQs on the planet. If you haven't been in for a coffee and used their restaurant, then you should go in there. It's brilliant. Poor old David, I'm sorry. Right, over to you, David.
Hi, good morning. The good news is I haven't got a book to plug, so saved us from another one of those. I also haven't got a presentation or a video, right? And I'm also taking no questions from this table over here because there's some Proserv guys sitting over there, right? I've got to come back on the building, and you're going to hear from David Clarke, who was also with ACCA after me. It's a fantastic facility. I arrived, the drawings were done. It was great. I had to approve it and build it. I vetoed one thing, which was the swimming pool. We took that out of the ground floor, but I was the guy that put the 18-hole putting green all weather in the car park, so I have to own up to that one. So yeah, I'm CEO of Proserv. I joined them last May after a new owner took over the company, private equity owned. So we restructured our company. We have 4 major divisions in our company. We have Subsea controls business. We have a production controls business, surface topside stuff. We have a drilling controls business, which is mainly based here in Houston and is built around the Gilmore valve product line. And we have what we call field technology services, which is all about rental, spreads going offshore, pipe cleaning, cutting, iWorks is in there, all that kind of stuff. So it's been an interesting journey for us for the last 4 years as a company. It's been tough, same as Alfie has described. So what's made Proserv get where it is today is 2 things: the talent and the technology. It is technology that drives our industry, and it's technology that makes people survive through the journey we've been through in the last 4 years. What we've just finished is, which is what I really wanted to talk about, is we've finished a new strategic plan for our company. Right? And I guess we all do that. We all put together 3 and 5 year strat plans for our company. Within ours, though, the basis for ours are 2 or 3 things. The one I wanted to talk about is technology roadmaps. So what we have for our different product lines is we have technology roadmaps that go out for 5 years. First year and a half is pretty sure because I'm going to be accountable for that. Second year and a half is not too bad. And year 4 and 5 are toss the coin and guess what it's going to be. So when we develop those things, it's not only about looking internally. We are using those documents with the stakeholders in our company, but more importantly with customers. So I've spent the last 9 months with some people in the company sharing our technology roadmaps with customers. And it's real interesting, right? Some don't want to know, right? And some want to participate. So some want us to come back and actually show the progress in our technology roadmap and influence what technologies we invest in. So when we do that, they begin to talk about the future. They begin to talk about what we can do to help them change, right? Because I think that is what it's all about. It's about the industry changing. Early adopters are great, and they come in various shapes and forms. Some of the large operators are early adopters. Some of the smaller independents, and we participate with all of them. But unless this industry can do more of that, then the subject matter today that we're going to discuss, it's going to be still a vague concept that isn't adopted across the board. So that joining of technology and reality has to happen through collaboration with customers. Like Alfie said, the success is the earlier up the chain you can get, and that's what we're trying to do with our technology maps and sharing them with people up front and let them influence what we're developing for the future. One final comment I would make. Before I was with Aker, I was with FMC for 29 years, which was a fantastic journey, great company. And then I joined JDR after Aker, and they were an umbilical supplier to oil and gas. Iwox, thermoplastic, and now they do steel tube. The big thing that took off for JDR was array cable. And JDR took some of their oil and gas knowledge and capability into that renewables market, and quickly, over 18 months, became the worldwide market leader for the supply of array cables, and took over 70% market share from Prysmian, Nexans, all these big companies. And the reason they did that was the technology. The reason they did that was because they went to the operators, the new developers, and asked them what they wanted in the array cable technology and built it. They came from oil and gas. The others didn't. The others came from land cable, supplying huge amounts of cable to the rail industry, the airplane industry. It's a commodity. Here's what we have by it. That's why JDR overtook them, because they went to the customer and asked what technology they want and built it. It's a good story. Renewables could open the door for the digital technology we're talking about today. Right? They are ready to do things a different way, and they are going to fund it. The belief that they aren't is not correct. They are willing to fund innovation, right? And there are certain operators in oil and gas that are doing both. They're not oil and gas companies anymore. Equinor, BP are moving that way, Shell are moving that way, and they're serious. Equinor are going for government approval, I think in 2 weeks, for the Dogger Bank project. It's about £24 billion project for renewables. The technology in it is amazing. They're fully committed to make it the first energy field in the world that maximizes the use of digital technology. It's clear intent of what they want to do. And they are having innovation days. They are talking to people about technology. So I think the industry, the energy industry, not just oil and gas, has to join up to go down the path. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion, and thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate that. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot about the old HQ, but it is beautiful. Next up is Thomas Sunde, VP Technology at Subsea 7. Again, please forgive my pronunciation. He started his career with aforementioned Statoil and has held various posts for Subsea 7, which I'm sure we'll discuss now. Thomas, over to you.
Starting off, business transformation was a theme here. A fundamental part of business transformation is actually innovation, challenging what we do, creating something new. Now, if we look at innovation, and I think we all can be innovative, we can all come up with new ideas. The biggest challenge for ourselves is actually to be purely innovative. You also need to implement. You need to commercialize your inventions in a wider sense. So what we're trying to do when we look at a business transformation, a technology development, is actually implementing, creating value through this. And it's sometimes forgotten about, where we do a lot of great stuff, but we do not get to the final prize, which is the innovation part. So keeping that in mind when we look at business transformation. So why do we need to be innovative? We have a changing business environment around us, so you cannot stay still. You cannot just continue as is with what previously was a positive or successful strategy. There's advancing technologies around us, not just within our own business, but probably to a larger extent outside of our business. How do you apply this? And not the least, increasing competition. It is what drives us. We are in a competitive environment. We are representing companies that are growing, trying to become more profitable. And last but not least, it's human nature. We invent, we challenge. That's our human nature. Unfortunately, in our industry, we to some degree have been pushed down the line and saying, no, we need to manage change. Change is a risk. So it's a part of this. I think Alfie talked about the permafrost. It is something we've been taught over the last, say, decades, that change is a risk. Now, change is also an opportunity, and that's part of what we need to get to. The final part here is we're not individually driving the change. The change is happening. The environment is changing. The technologies are changing. And you need to be a part of it. It's not for us to decide to be and make change. It's happening around us. So either you're part of it for a sustainable future or you're out of it. So if you look at innovation and the pathways, just to remind ourselves, the first part is actually the climate to accept change. That's something that happens in the organization, something that has to be driven from a leadership perspective downwards, to actually not just look at, okay, I'm open for some ideas, but how do you actually include the people in your organization? How do you actually get that inclusion for multifunctional teams? How do you collaborate? How do you actually then start making creativity? It is a fundamental part of innovation that you create that climate within your organization, or nothing will change. The other part is actually the relationship between stakeholders. Traditionally, we've been very hierarchic in our approach to business. We've looked at the end user, we've looked at the main contractors, we've looked at suppliers. Actually, to be innovative, you need to bring in expertise from several different areas. We talk about multifunctional, which normally is, okay, I'll get teams within my own organization to work together. But to create value and be purely innovative, you need a wider sense. You need to operate with an ecosystem. That barrier is being broken down. We've seen big changes in the organizations today, in our business today, about cross-collaboration, about the full supply chain being involved in innovation. The last one is actually taking a broader view. Normally, we've looked at cost. Cost has driven us from a technology development, has driven us in many different areas. Now, we're starting to hear the words sustainability, energy transition, business models, take the wider context when we look at innovation. And in that, traditionally, we've looked at innovation in three different areas: technology innovation, or technical innovation, business innovation, and process innovation. When we talk about transformative technologies or transformation of businesses, it involves all three aspects of that together. It's not always easy to get the full view of where we're heading, but you need to start in an area to say, you start with the technical side, you look at the process, you look at the innovation. One of those transformative technologies that we've heard many buzzwords around the last couple of years, but what does it actually, how does it create value for the business? What we looked at from our side is, okay, digitalization is transformative. It is creating value for the industry. Now, the way we've treated this from a Subsea 7 perspective, we've looked at the full value chain associated with what we do. Where do we fit into this ecosystem? Starting with the front-end engineering, the whole design process of concepts for development schemes around the world. Then into the execution of our traditional business, which is our SURF business, and then followed by the life of field, and actually we call it the after sales, which is a very kind of business-related word, but how can you actually create value in that chain for an ecosystem? The three parts to this really is improving decision quality at the front end, because the decisions you take at the development stage, you're going to have to live with for the whole lifespan. Enhancing performance, which is really down to efficiency gains through the operations that we traditionally do, down to then enabling the products of the future and also introducing remote operations. If we look at the first part of this, how can you actually take the right decision and the optimum decision every time at a front end where you do not have all the details? We've created a tool together with Schlumberger One Subsea that it does exactly that. It is live, it is implemented now. It's called Subsea Plan, where it has an efficient user interface where you actually visualize, and it's part of this digitalization aspect, the ability to visualize what you're doing is fundamental to this. Common data environment, one input, goes through the whole process, so you don't have this interaction and failure modes through it. Decades of experience. If you look at just our own company, Subsea 7, 30 years, 40 years of experience within this type of work, you add all the different companies, even in this room, and say, how can you actually use that data? For us, When we talk about digitalization and data, the part here is actually harnessing experience. How can we actually know what's right and wrong from all the decades of experience that we have? Yeah? Automating engineering, moving faster, but the ultimate goal, make better decisions and do that faster. This is a tool, as I said, is live. It is starting to build on that process now. It involves the economics of the field on top of the technical side, so it allows us to screen different concepts. The other part, if you look at the life of the field, so transforming the industry. So the first one is really a process-oriented. How can we actually work differently? The second part is actually, what is the field of the future? It's a theme that has been put forward many times before. What is it? You have the technical aspect, but as important here is how do you actually maintain operability of your asset? How do you maintain the integrity of your asset? And the systems that we're building now are building around actually implementing enable products of the future, actually acquiring data, analyzing that data, smarter systems, actually analytics to actually propose then, okay, you're fine, you're not fine, but what is actually the residual value and residual lifespan of the asset? And the next move is actually supporting the offshore fields, removing the vessels, ultimately. Putting then drones on the seabed, operating those from an onshore control room and supporting in a different manner than we've ever been able to do before. And last but not least, the transformation isn't complete if you don't transform also your workforce in your organization. The permafrost example, I think, is a very good one because we want to maintain, we want to stay within the organizational structure that is already set. All our people want security, they want their own organization, they want clarity. What we're seeing now on the digitalization move is we sit with the domain experts, which is the fundamental part of that transformation. But the expertise around digitalization, software, data scientists, they don't sit in our organization. But you cannot just add them into a project organization. A digitalization transformation is not you find one solution, you find one tool, you'll change it. It's not like a typical project. It is incremental by nature, and you build step by step into a future position. The organization has to change. You have to bring in other experts, but you also have to work differently. You have to break the barriers between different organizational structures within your own organization, but also linking them to suppliers and partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. That was absolutely fabulous, really interesting. Don't forget, please, to put your questions to Thomas and the others at slido.com, #OGVBreakfast. Moving swiftly on, Steve Hamilton is Technology Manager at Xodus, including overseeing the development of tools and products to the global upstream market. Steve, over to you.
So what I want to talk about is some of the barriers that we see as Xodus Group and some of the lessons that we've learned through the years of trying to implement technology. When I say technology, what I mean by technology is a change to a user's toolkit. Okay? It's very applicable to what we talk about in terms of digitization. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do is make a positive change to the way a client or a person within that client organization manages his day, manages his time, and his ability to deliver a quality job. I think we can dispense with that one. What I will say, though, is I'm not a tech person. And Xodus Group isn't a tech company. We're a consultancy. What we do is solve problems. Okay? So we're agnostic of technology. But a lot of those problems that we're seeing now, and have done since the inception of the company, they involve technological solutions. So we've had to adapt and learn how to implement these technological solutions and overcome the barriers that we continue to see in the organization. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit, and I'm going to use an old model to talk about this. So we'll talk about a little bit about recent industry research. We'll talk about that toolkit and that change to the client's toolkit by looking at managing change. We'll look at some of the barriers, and I'll give you a few case studies of things that we've seen along the way, and then I'll summarise it all. If you look at the Industry 4.0 work that's gone on over the past few years, there was an excellent report written by the OGTC in the UK last year. I'd encourage you to read that one. Accenture, McKinsey, all the way back to Harvard Business School in 1988. You see a pattern emerge. Now, along the bottom of that slide, I've shown you the values of the classes that the OGTC looked at in their report. But those are universal. Those come through all of these industry research papers. And the technical aspects of what we do change. But the cultural, commercial, awareness and people aspects of implementation of new technology, they don't change. And what I want to do is I want to break those down into the visualizations, what you're going to see when you see these barriers take place. To do that, I'm going to use an old model. It's called the Knoster model. It comes from the medical industry, actually, around about the 1990-91. So, if we accept that technology is the change to a user's toolkit, it's about managing that change. If you want to implement successful change in an organization, you can break it down into these elements. You have to have the vision to see what that change is going to do for you. You have to have the skills, or find the skills into your organization to make sure that change works. You have to understand and communicate the incentive for that change. You have to have the resources to deliver it. And you have to be able to plan it, not just the implementation, but the ongoing use and success of that change, that technology. But what happens if one of these elements is missing? If you don't have the vision, that vision isn't clear throughout the organisation. You don't get change, you get confusion. And we've all seen it. Okay? I ran this presentation through a couple of colleagues of mine yesterday, and they were nodding as I ran it. We all see it, we've seen it for years, and we continue to see it. But what are you looking for here? Well, in our experience, what we're seeing is that the vision is a one-stop shop. You're seeing a management level vision that isn't adapted, that isn't communicated through the organisation. And it becomes, as you go through the organisation, it becomes non-applicable at times and adds to the confusion. So, what do we need there? Well, we need those high-level objectives throughout that vision to cascade through the organisation so that they are applicable to everybody and every stakeholder in the organisation that's involved in this change. You need to engage those stakeholders during the development of that vision. And if possible, quantify the gain. We recently had an experience with a client who recognised that they needed a new integrity management system within their organisation. Integrity management systems are easy to go and get in the marketplace, but that vision led to confusion within the organisation, and they spent months and months and months trying to agree what functionality was needed in that integrity management system. So much so that they spent more money discussing it and reviewing it than it actually took for us to build it from scratch, from the ground up, as a bespoke tool that fits their organisation perfectly. That was all due to not cascading that vision properly through their organisation. If you don't have the skills, you get anxiety. And I'm going to equate this quite simply to two things: time and training. You can't cascade new technology into a workforce that doesn't have the time to embrace it. Time to embrace it might equal training. You might be able to get up the curve on the new technology that you're deploying, but not always. And you've got to be able to evaluate whether those people need new training. And if they do, get time to do it. I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I'm going to say beware the early adopters and the loud applauders. Because when you're implementing the technology, these guys can mask the true reality of how successful you're being during that implementation process. The quiet guy, the quiet, studious guy in the background who's not an early adopter or early deployer might be really struggling with it. He's the guy you've got to hear from. One of the lessons, we've done a bit of research into other industries, and everybody says, oh, other industries are much better at this than us. But they're having their problems too. So when you look, we did a bit of research down into the building industry. One of the problems they're having in their deployment of digital technology is it's become so important within their businesses that the people that they've trained to do the analytics, to look at the digital solutions, have become so important that they're pigeonholed. And it's actually become a barrier to their careers in a lot of cases. That in turn is stopping other people wanting to go down into that technical approach. So we have to be aware that we're not pigeonholing people and stopping the deployment of that technology. If you don't have incentive, you get resistance. People don't understand it. Okay? So again, like vision, it's all about engaging the stakeholders, making sure people understand the differences between the company goals, like Thomas said, the technical goals, the influences on the people, potentially reputation. How are you going to incentivize the workforce? Do you need an internal sale? Do you need to deploy technology champions or some other role in that way? And you have to manage the naysayers. Yeah? And we've all heard this before. We tried this before and it didn't work. But we've always done it this way and it's been fine. I don't have the time for this. And it's not the fact that they're naysayers, it's what's behind that that's the issue. There's potentially a need for training, there's potentially a need for more time to get these people on board. What about the resources? Well, if you don't have the resources, you get frustration. Again, engaging the stakeholders, including, and in our experience, IT, become a major stakeholder in any sort of digital level project. Other domain experts. Quite often clients are working in silos, and you've got to understand the interaction between those silos and how deployment of technology in one area affects other domain expertise within that organization. Another thing that we see very often is, albeit that the stakeholders are engaged, they're not working to a consistent timeline. And very often that leads to problems late in the deployment of technology, where something's gone wrong with the equipment, with the speed of the equipment, with the robustness of the equipment, with how your deployment's going. Lastly, plan. If you don't have a plan, you get false starts. Yeah. What I would encourage, and this is due to experience within Xodus Group, is understanding the priorities of any deployment of technology that you do. Consider phasing. Consider being able to quantify success at various times in the project. And post-deployment, how do you continue to make sure that piece of technology gains traction within the organization? Very often, we see that we deploy a piece of technology and everything's done right. We have a champion inside the organization, but as soon as that champion is promoted or moved to a different role, you see a loss of uptake in that technology. So it is about succession planning and making sure that is inherently built into the organization. A few years ago, we were working with a tier 1 operator, and they knew that they needed to deploy an intelligent pipeline management system. Now, they're a tier 1 operator. Okay, it's a long pipeline system, and it was at the forefront of that type of technology at that time. But knowing this client, they had the vision to do this because they'd done it before. They certainly had the skills to do it. They're one of the premier international oil companies in the world. They had the incentive because they'd understood and had good work done to understand the problems that are going to occur in this system. They certainly had the resources. The problem that they had was their plan. They engaged all of the stakeholders. All of the stakeholders put their input to the functionality of the tool, but they didn't prioritize. When you add up that functionality, you get to a point where the tool fundamentally is too complicated. So that prioritization is part of that planning and that success management. What does success really look like in this functionality? That was absolutely critical. They spent an awful lot of money going round in circles. And all they needed to do was phase and plan. So that methodology of developing and deploying these tools based on functionality is, and a couple of the speakers have said it already, we've got experience of the failure of that type of deployment of this technology. What we've got to look at is we've got to look at the pains inside the organization that we're trying to solve, the gaps in the toolkit that the users have. And to do that, there's been a shift over the last 10 years or so within circles of deployment, of understanding this. And I guess 10 years ago at the TED Talk, Simon Sinek talked about starting with why. Why are we doing this? And that's all about solving the pain that the end user has and designing the functionality to match those pains. No more, no less. In Xodus, we've had great success. With the help of Scottish Enterprise, we've deployed a technology, or a methodology, rather, from a company called Strategizer. It's a two-tier process. It starts with a value proposition canvas, which understands the user's pains as a starting point. You then work backwards to the functionality that you need, and you work together to formulate a functionality within a tool or a service to get the client to exactly where he needs to be. So that shift from functionality to understanding the client's pains is a key success story from our delivery of technology. So I'll finish there, and I'll summarize with these few thoughts. Treat new technology as a change within your organization or your client's organization. Accept that sometimes the technology is not the main barrier to the implementation. Successful implementation is generally complex. You have to understand the issues. Identify and engage all the stakeholders. Always consider the end users. And ask yourself, what pains am I trying to solve with this technology? How do I best implement them? Thank you very much.
Sorry if you're having trouble hearing. We are trying to get the microphone to pick everything up. So we have Roderick A. Larson, President and CEO of Oceaneering. Did you know that Oceaneering also serves the defence, aerospace and commercial theme park sectors through its applied technology expertise? Hope I'm not taking your thunder there, Rod. Mr. Larson joined Oceaneering in May 2012 after 22 years with Baker Hughes. I do hope you got a gold watch. He has look at his CV, he's got a list of directorships as long as my arm. It's incredible. Anyway, Rod, over to you.
Thanks, Damien. And I'm going to apologize that I didn't bring slides, and you're going to have to look at that one a while longer. But listen, it's kind of fun to go last because you get to tie into what everybody else did, and I'll steal some from what everybody else talked about. But if I could share a story about shortly after I came to Oceaneering, probably about 6 years ago, I got asked to come and talk to a panel that some of you may be familiar with. It was the VASTA panel. And it was a government task force that was set out after Macondo to talk about the best and safest technology available and why more of that wasn't deployed in the oil field. And it was a pretty interesting question to be asked, right? And so I think it's really applicable today because, it's not technology for technology's sake. And a lot of times we say, there's a lot of great technology available today that's not being used, and why. So I'm gonna go to the why. Steve set me up. We'll talk about the why first. We'll talk a little bit about the what great technologies are out there, and then what I think is the thing that's really broken is the how. And so if you think about the why, last year I got to talk on a panel and we talked about relevance, and it was OTC, so I was talking about the relevance of offshore. and offshore being relevant at that time against unconventional shale mostly. And so I sat on the panel with a lot of offshore people, and I said, "You guys aren't my competition. You're not the enemy. The enemy's in the Permian Basin." I think it shifted, and I think we talk a little bit about relevance in the broader term about hydrocarbon energy and the not the enemy, but at least the challenge is energy transition. It's about renewables, and you can say, why do people need technology? Why do we need to change? And we used to tell ourselves, follow the money. And I would say it's almost follow the money is always going to be important. But I think we're going to have to more and more, which shifts in the world, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. We need to pay attention to public sentiment. And so public sentiment is, if you don't believe that it's becoming more important in the world we live in today, think about the power of social media. But as a CEO, we deal with the power of ESG. And how much the environmental, the social, and the governance is taking part in how we run our businesses today. And it's not just important to us; it's important to our customers. And if you need examples, Statoil, that's now Equinor, a pretty big shift, and Shell and BP that are talking about they're not oil and gas; they're energy providers, right? And you'll see the shift. One of my friends at BP just got named the CEO of wind energy, and so this is real and it's really happening. So how do we, what do our customers care about? They care about what the consumers care about. And it's not going to be oil and gas and hydrocarbon versus renewables. It's going to be an integration of energy. And that's what they're looking for. And it's you can start with the easy things, low carbon or just generally environmental impact. They want things that are, intrinsically safe. They want power that's economic and available and reliable. And they want us to use our resources wisely, and it's not that's not a really, I wouldn't say that's a bad mandate, right? So when you think about the social mandate, the operation or the license to operate, that's what's going to drive business. That's what's going to drive our customers. I think if you look out there, you're going to see independents that actually are branded as being the most socially responsible businesses, and even the majors are starting to change their stripes. So I think that's the why. I think the why is very compelling. We're going to see change, and it's going to require some significant technology to really make people believe that we can achieve all those things. So what do you do? I mean, one of the things is you're sitting at what you think is the brink of a change, and you look at other industries and you think about what's happened to the auto industry. And, for years and years, it was just about making cars a little bit safer, what we would call incremental changes, small incremental changes, better fuel efficiency, better safety, better features. And that was the change until now. And now the auto industry is on its ear, wondering about driverless cars and electrification and all the things they're dealing with. Cell phone industry. I mean, hundreds of years, phones were just about, a better form factor for a wired phone that was sitting in your house. And then comes a cell phone, and then becomes a smartphone, which is everything. I mean, nobody makes a phone call with it anymore, right? I mean, it's a communication tool. It's an enabler, but it's not really even a phone anymore. And what we know is it's not. The only thing you can really count on is that it's going to happen faster than you thought, and it's not going to go the direction you thought. You're not going to be able to predict it. So what do you do? And one of the things that I find myself thinking about is I don't necessarily know exactly what the formula is going to be, but I know what the components are going to be. And so if I think about the problems that need to be solved, I'm going to kind of just focus on a few, mostly because they're offshore, and I get to talk about that because I'm from oceaneering. But low carbon footprint and human safety. And so one of the keys that you think about to drive low carbon footprint and human safety is automation. Can we do more without big surface vessels and people floating around on the water to work on things that are under the water? And so if you're looking for a solution like automation, certain things are going to be important. Batteries. Better battery technology is going to be important. Connectivity. An expansive 5G network above the water and great wireless communications below the water. These are important things that are going to happen. And automation is going to require machine vision. It's going to require machine learning, augmented reality. And I got our GDS Global Data Solutions, and I'm looking to make sure I don't mess up here because this is his bailiwick. But it's going to require a lot of these technologies, all the way up to artificial intelligence. And so if I'm giving anybody advice, I think the advice we have is that be good at the building blocks, be good at the parts that are going to be important, And the technology that evolves, if you're not first, you'll be a fast follower. I think, but we've got to be good at that. And you think about, again, people who are playing catch up, Ford trying to make sure that they can get on the driverless car bandwagon or the electric car bandwagon when they were a little bit behind. They're doing well now, but I think they're playing catch up. So, if we don't know exactly what we want, but I can tell you a lot of great things are coming. Our industry is good at building things, and they're good at listening. I think what's going on in the world right now, you've got electric frac fleets. Companies that are building a brand on electric frac fleets that are powered from field gas. Great green technology. Great at answering the social mandate to get the noise, to get all that high horsepower, to get the pollution down. All of the things that really plague the frac market today. And offshore, I talked about down manning. If you come by our booth at OTC, you'll see things like remote operations, where we've got somebody piloting an ROV from Houston here. We've got an ROV that will be in the water later today in Norway. He'll be flying that ROV from Houston, and I hope if you get a chance to go by, it should be really interesting, because I think they're going to be diving the ROV on a shipwreck offshore Bergen. So it'll be a great way to see kind of an interesting use of the technology. But it's enabled by things like, another thing we've got on the floor is we've got a communication dome. Because if we start to try to do more automation, one of the constraints could be our ability to communicate, both uplink and downlink. And so being able to increase the throughput, the bandwidth on an offshore vessel by about 6x through a single piece of equipment that's got about a 6x6 footprint on the boat. Big things. And then finally, we're also showcasing our new AUV ROV hybrid. And I think one of the most amazing things about this is, and I'll use Equinor as an example again, Equinor's got fields all along the Norwegian continental shelf. And all of those things need intervention. Send out a boat, send down an ROV, take a look, go back. So most of what we do is just purely observation. And we do some light intervention work. But think about if you could put about 10 resident vehicles in the water that sit on top of a charging pad and wait to get told back to go to work or to do whatever they need to do, and being able to cover the entire Norwegian continental shelf where the activity is occurring with about 10 vehicles appropriately placed. And that technology is sitting on the floor at OTC today, ready to be trialed, ready to be put back to work. So the technology's there. And there's amazing technology out there that could change what we do. And that's where I think the how is broken. And in here, we talked a little bit about the permafrost. So I'm going to talk about the permafrost because I think that really brings it home. If I talk to people at the high levels at BP and Equinor, they all believe. They want a step change. They want drones. They want all this different technology. They believe. The problem is, it's not the way they operate their business. Their business is operated on something which is a beautiful word, continuous improvement, right? Continuous improvement is what we all want, but it really focuses on small, incremental improvements. And the people that are buying, the people that are proving the technology, that are putting it in the field and deciding how we're going to do the work out there today, they're not incentivized for step changes that involve risk. They're incentivized on incremental changes that reduce cost, improve throughput, improve delivery times incrementally. As long as it was better than the last time, they will get rewarded. But they're not ready to take the risk. And a lot of the decisions are made at procurement. A lot of the decisions are made at operating levels that don't have a broader kind of vision to make those step changes. And so we got to figure out, number one, and this is a tough part because I'm talking to a lot of other people that are in my shoes that we're trying to get these things done. But we need to figure out how to break through at the customer's office and be able to really demonstrate that all the good things that we know about continuous improvement, decision rights being close to the front lines, they prove a challenge in the adoption of technology. So I hope that that's an interesting way to transition us to the panel discussion, and I'll look forward to hearing what your thoughts are and your questions. Thank you.
Brilliant, fabulous. That I think really does help us transition to the panel session now. So please keep your questions coming on Slido, and then we'll throw it open to the floor as well. I've obviously got a couple of questions, being a journalist, but I'd rather hear from you than me. But also, just to give everybody a fair intro, we've met everybody other than David Clarke, who is Executive Vice President Services for Aker Solutions, covering everything from renewables to decom and digital and cultural transformation, and he's now Lloyd's Register Energy Director. So I hope I got your title right. Gentlemen, would you mind joining us at the panel? The seats are there.
How do we figure out how to protect and minimize that risk to them in their career when we talk to decision makers? So it's not easy, but I think if we really believe that we've got the right solution, we need to help them understand it. And then, for those of us who have the opportunity within our companies, we actually need to be pretty straightforward in talking to the higher level decision makers and the higher level people in the organization and point out that there's a breakdown between what they're asking us for, drone technology or what have you, and what's happening in the decision process within their organization. We have to speak truth to the power, right? And it's not always easy to do, especially when we're a vendor.
Other people, you're talking at the head of the chain, banging their heads against a brick wall on this as well, or are they desperately trying to push it down the line to make it happen?
No, I don't think they are. I think Rod's 100% correct in what he just described. That as an organisation, a technology organisation within oil and gas, that's the challenge you face. There's a guy sitting at the desk that isn't paid to take a risk. But you've got a lot of work to do well in advance of his point in the chain of events, right? Which is, I think what Rod said really resonates, of sitting in front of the people that have power in these organizations and actually telling them sometimes what they don't want to hear. What they desire out of our companies, what they need us to do for them in improvement in the future does require step change. It does require a different type of collaboration and operation together. And to get to that point, there needs to be discussions at that level. And to tell a powerful client that some of their processes don't enable what they're trying to get to is a tough deal to do. And you've got to keep going back, right? No matter where in the organization you meet that resistance, you have to keep going back into that organization and help them tie the pieces together. Because at the end of the day, any of these organizations, and I'm sure Rod would tell you the same, although it's a mountain to climb, within those organizations are the people that want this to happen. And spending the time and dedication to find them, meet them, explain what you're capable of doing and what our industry is capable of doing takes a determined effort. It's not a purchase order event. It's a long chain of events in partnering and discussing with people what you want to achieve.
Okay, thank you. A question has come in from John Allen, and I'll basically summarize it, which is, I've lost that, but basically the gist of it was, do we have the right skills in place to this transformation? And if we haven't, what skill sets do we need to make sure this takes place? And I'll ask, David Clarke. Thank you.
Good morning. In reality, probably not. There is a range of skills that we need to bring into the business, which is fundamentally driven around some of that digitalization, that know-how. I think more importantly with that is actually a mindset for change. And a mindset to come in, actually do different, challenge how we operate and how we work. You know, if we look at our industry going forward, it will fundamentally change. And I strongly believe that the operators who buy today and the supply chain at the services level, the contracting level, the OEM level, we don't quite realize just what that transformation will be as we go from a world of man hours and specific skill set and capability to being a lot more CPU driven. So things will happen through CPU cycles rather than man hours. That means we need to fundamentally change what is the expertise, what is core knowledge in actually developing, assessing, managing and building and operating an asset, as well as the processes needed to execute that. So I think we need to broaden our capability on that front. We need to be able to entice into the oil and gas sector the skill sets and the young next generation to be able to achieve that and sustain the production that the world needs for the next several decades. And to Rod's point, that's absolutely about integration. And it's about being able to help position our sector in transitioning oil and gas from being the problem to being part of that integrated solution. So how do we take the industry forward to deliver on that low carbon transition and make the world a safer place in the process?
Okay, fabulous. A question, I guess, from Himanshu who's come in. He's seeking your views to attract that right talent, data science, particularly automation and IT, into the energy industry when there's so much competition out there for those skills, particularly in the auto technology industry. Steve, how do we get that right talent in?
Well, first of all, I think it is a real problem. We are struggling to get talent into the oil and gas industry. The talent that 10, 15 years ago was coming towards BP and Shell and the higher echelons of the industry is now not interested. You have to work hard in your organisations to get the talent in the door. And part of that is technology. Part of that is the evolution. The technology itself, I think, will bring people into the industry. And this transformation to renewables, this energy transformation, what we're seeing anyway, is we're seeing that gets people excited. That gets young people excited. And it's the young people that are coming into the industry that will have these transformative skills that are going to help us change. We're all a bit long in the tooth now to be retraining and fundamentally retraining our skill sets to look at the future. So it's really, really important that our organisations change and we sell this industry, this transformation to the industry leaders of the future.
Please.
I would just say that they got to believe in the transition. They got to believe that we are not working against renewables or what comes next in energy, because otherwise, they're reading the same things that many of us are reading. This industry is going backwards as of 2025, 2030, you name it. And if they're young people, that's in their career. So if they believe that we're the buggy whip manufacturers of the modern age, we're not going to get them.
Alfie, just following on from that to some extent, I guess, Kevin Giles asks, with clients still extremely focused on cost, do you believe this is affecting the service industry and investing into digital transformation? And I also think an adjunct to that is, given where we've been over the last 4 years, and we've slashed and we burned and we cut graduate schemes and apprenticeships, and have we disincentivized young people to join the industry as well?
No, I think the opportunity is still there, but we have to go out and we have to embrace the millennials to come into the business and create a roadmap for them to say, look, this is where the energy industry is going, rather than just the oil and gas industry. This is the energy industry, the battery technology, and a combination of all these things, bringing them together to make it an attractive industry to bring the youth into. I remember a few years ago being at Aberdeen University and Professor Ian Diamond there, and we were at a panel one evening, and he said something really, and I remember it. He said, we have been here at Aberdeen University since 1492. He says, and the oil and gas industry arrived in Aberdeen some 40 years ago. He says, however, here tonight, gentlemen, we're now looking at how we can embrace our students into the oil and gas industry. So we have to take that step. So we've got to move forward, move quickly, because if we don't move quickly, then it'll be too late. The youth will move on and not wait for us. So it's a collaboration. And your question on cost, although we've been pressurized on cost, getting costs down, I still think we're an industry that can continually reinvent itself and come with innovation, come with new ideas and new things to the market. So we shouldn't focus too much on cost, but more on the big picture.
Okay. Thomas, what do you think about the cost element? Do you think it's holding us back at all?
Well, cost from what perspective?
Well, just a question from Kevin Giles. With clients still extremely focused on cost, do you believe this is affecting the service industry's ability to invest in digital transformation?
I think the cost, if I look at it, say, we go through downturns and upturns in our industry, and every single kind of downturn results in a change. And now the change over the last 2 periods has been a lot around cost, and we need to drive down cost. But I would rather turn it the other way around. Actually, I think the drive towards a cost reduction is so big now and acknowledged by everyone that it drives actually innovation. It's a catalyst because we know we can't just go back and do the same thing as previously and squeeze on margins. It's not sustainable for anyone in the industry. So I think it's driven us to a point where actually the acceptance of technology is far greater than we've seen in the industry before. There are still elements here. If it fits within the business model of today, we see quite a rapid move and acceptance from us, especially parts of our clients' organization to take kind of a risk or move into use of new technology. I think the biggest barrier right now is, as Rod talked about before, which is, okay, the cost drive hasn't really transformed into a drive to change some of the fundamentals of the business models. And for me, that's probably the remaining point if we're going to create full value, full cost reduction, is actually now rattle these business models into it. But the main part is, no, the cost drive, I think, is a catalyst for change.
Okay. Can I just please do talk a little about the talent subject? I think it's a competition, right? This to get the talent that you need in your organization, either at apprentice or graduate level. It's a competition. You've got to be a great place to work. You got to enable these people to work in an environment that they enjoy, where it's safe to make a mistake. Right? Where making mistakes helps you learn. Right? You've got to take a risk with talent. The days of being an engineer and after 7 years being a senior engineer because you've got 7 years are done. But the whole of our infrastructure is sometimes built around that concept. So it's not only attracting the talent, it's using that talent, taking a risk with that talent. The technologies and training of today are so different to what we're used to. Applying that talent a different way is very important, right? And whether that's out of an apprenticeship scheme or a graduate scheme, because they're equivalent today, is for our organizations, and we look at it ourselves. How do we attract those people, give them an environment where they can learn, where it's safe to make a mistake, and they can progress their career rapidly, where talent determines that, as opposed to traditional barriers, is a big thing. And that's what will attract people into our industry. That's what other industries are looking for. And I think that's what we need to do.
Are we even looking at that? Are we scraping the surface
of
that?
I think we criticize ourselves too much. I think if you look at if somebody actually did a bit of work on it and looked at the development of young talent in our industry, we're to the forefront of most industries in the world. We've sent people around the globe for years. The exposure we get to young people in our industry is second to none. And we need to talk about that. And we need to show people that. How many of us go to high school? I do. Not so much now, but I used to. I don't mean when I was studying, or supposed to be studying. And you bring them into your factories. They're stunned by what we do. They love it. Right? We've even done it with primary schools. So it's up to us to engage to bring the talent in. I don't think it's as big a problem as we think it is if we do something about it.
There's an awful lot of focus at the moment about, obviously, energy transition and protests going on in some of our major cities around the globe. We've all been caught up in London's horrible protests. How do we counteract such a big lobbying voice and such a kind of sexy message to be spread by them to say, look, we're part of that. We're part of the solution, not part of the problem. How do we do that? Rod, perhaps I can ask you, and then so others can chip in on that.
I think, number one, and I threw out that number, 2025, 2030, because I find myself talking about that all the time, is that you can't just talk about peak demand for oil and gas without talking about population growth and also improving lives around the world. So if you try to explain to people, if a day without oil and gas, if we could shut it off tomorrow like they kind of purport that they'd like us to do, a lot of the haves will still have, but the have-nots are lost. And so our real message is more energy for the world, and albeit clean and safe and everything else we have to do, is going to improve lives. And you think about electrification of Africa, that allows, you know, women to do less gathering wood and preparing meals and things and actually attend schools. And attending school reduces rampant population growth and improves lives. I mean, we are really working for that incremental energy that we can put on faster than renewables can grow that improves lives. And we need to change that. We need to change that conversation.
Please, Thomas, yeah.
You know, if you look at human resources and expertise, I think you touched on before, is that the why, I think, is clear. We are in a transition. We know we have a sustainable future. The what, I think, as an industry, we're not clear on. If you take the view to 2025, 2030, what is that future for us? Yeah. What type of skills do we need? What does our people look like overall in the industry? I don't think we're there because we're losing 5% a year. Yeah. Where are the people in the influx coming? Because I think in the upturns, we've seen it historically, we poach off each other. Yeah. So the resources are actually moved from company to company. The influx, if you look at it to a 2030 story, how many thousands do we need? How many hundred thousands do we need? Who are they? I don't think we have a plan. So we're struggling to get to the how if we don't know what we need. And that's the main issue for me. David?
I would add to that, Thomas. I would say, you know, as an industry, our failures are very public, but our successes are quiet. I think we've got to take a look at ourselves and say, we've got to up our game on the PR front of the successes. We've got to see more of the industry at the universities, at the schools. We've got to really work harder to change the public perception of what we do. And I don't think we're doing enough about it.
Yeah, just to touch on a couple of points. You know, part of the challenge going forward is actually bringing skill sets and bringing thinking at a holistic level. David talked earlier about the challenges of selling new technology and transformative solutions to operators. And that's really because they're pretty siloed in how they actually assess, develop, and then how they build, and then ultimately how they operate, and how ultimately they decommission it. That's an upstream oil and gas asset. When we look at the world going forward, with the complexities of bringing renewable technologies, new storage systems, network, grid infrastructure, grid connections, those are elements of the industry and governments that operate differently from oil and gas. And we've got to be able to understand how these pieces can work together and therefore be able to pull talent in that's got the bandwidth, capability, and mindset to actually create the solutions needed to integrate these and deliver these solutions. Now, the mindset changes that we're starting to see in some of the big operators, the Equinor, Shell, and BP, that's been touched on today, as a supply chain and as an industry, we need to be able to move forward at that same pace in understanding the complexities that will bring to our industry. The complexities also, obviously, that brings opportunities, and that allows us to reposition who we are and how we help solve the world's problems. And to the point earlier, shift the barrier, shift the mindset of the perception of oil and gas.
Thank you. Alfie, I guess carrying on from, we were talking about the need to change and the drive to change. Phil Cooper asked, in the 70s and 80s, the industry made amazing progress in offshore and subsea in a very short space of time. Have we lost this pioneering spirit?
I think it depends on which market or which region we're talking about. I mean, I think in the North Sea, we certainly made some significant advances in the 70s and 80s at a tremendous pace. But of course, at that time, it was an emerging industry whereby, in order to get first oil, we had to move quickly. The industry has matured, so creating transformational change today is more difficult than it was at that time. But I think it's back to enhancement and how we can enhance recovery methods and looking at how we can get more out of existing basins moving forward. So I don't think we're going to see huge changes. That the basic subsea technology, okay, with technology coming forward, but the basic hardware is still relatively the same. It's the application of electronics and technology to that will improve improve our recovery, the barrels per day recovery. But a lot of that, we know, I'm not plugging Scotland here, but we know in West Hills we have this centre of excellence in subsea engineering. So the Scottish Government's been a huge support there, and we've seen a lot of emerging new methods coming out of there. So I don't think we're going to see huge change, but a slow change, steady.
Okay. Anybody else want to add on that? Have we lost the pioneering spirit? No? Okay, we'll move on. A slightly controversial question, and I'll paraphrase it because I need to be very careful about this. We're obviously, there's a predominance of white, young, middle-aged men in the industry in this room. How do we attract more women, particularly to leadership roles? How do we attract more people from different backgrounds into the leadership roles to help us get there? And the question is around particularly Asia and Africa, to draw the right people in who are going to be affected specifically by that energy transformation to help us get to where we need to get to. I'm so really sorry to put somebody on the spot here, but I'll go with Steve.
Good luck, Steve.
Ouch.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it is an issue. We are a predominantly white industry. I think lots of companies are doing their best. They're reaching out to other industries. They're reaching out to other countries. But it's about how do we attract those other countries. It harks back to me a little bit for the PR. Are we doing the PR in the right areas? Are we going to the right universities? I think we've just got to expand beyond the red brick universities. I mean, the panel today has talked a lot about Aberdeen University, West Hill. We talk about the University of Houston. We talk about Trondheim. We talk about Delft. We talk about the same universities, so we talk about the same demographic. How do we change that? We've got to go to different places to change the demographic of the talent that's coming into the industry.
I'm delighted to be called middle-aged. Again, I think we're better than we say we are. We have facilities around the world. We have one which I've visited in the last 8 months for the first time. Stunning. We have a facility in Saudi Arabia for our friends at Aramco. They have a target for something they call ICTVA, which is local employment. By 2023, you've got to be over 71% to be a platinum supplier to Saudi Aramco. Proserv have a facility in Saudi Arabia that's already at 75%. They have a graduate intake from Saudi University. We have a current plan for sites in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Batam in Indonesia, where within the next 18 months they'll be run by locals. Our industry does do this well, right? I don't think it's correct. I don't think the question's fair, right? To be honest, I think we do have a history of developing talent from different backgrounds, different areas of the world, and we do it very well.
Yeah, maybe a slightly different angle to it, but if I go back to kind of the resource needs and we look at actually the constraints that we have in the industry, if we don't actually look at diversification, both from a gender perspective, but also kind of geographical and cultural, we'll fail. We will not have the resources we need. When it comes back to say, okay, promoting gender, promoting cultural diversity, as everything else, you need to set a target and you need to drive actions towards that target, or it's not going to happen. So I don't think we've succeeded yet. I wouldn't go as far as to saying we failed, but actually to look at the workforce in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, we have to follow through on the action plan. We have to follow through and actually deliver on it. And it's in motion, but it's something that needs to be measured continuously.
David Clarke.
You know what's interesting is we talk a lot about what we're doing, right? You know, are we going out and capturing these people? Are we capturing a different, diverse talent? And I really think we take a step back to our image as an industry. People will come where they want to work. They will fight to get jobs if those jobs are attractive. I mean, they're willing to work and then push their way into places that even maybe aren't seemingly friendly, if it's what they really want to do. I think we need to ask ourselves, have we sold the value proposition of energy to where people really want to be here? Those other groups really want to be part of these jobs. I mean, think about veterinary science is 80% women. And it's because the jobs appeal to them. And that happened early. I mean, that transition into that business. And hey, we make excuses about living in coveralls and all these 30 jobs. Veterinary science, especially large animal veterinary science, is not an easy job, right? That's a coverall kind of job. And so we can't fool ourselves. If we don't create that draw of a place where you get to come and have meaningful work that is, satisfies what you want from a higher level, from that emotional paycheck, we're not going to capture more people. We got to draw them in.
I guess the last piece I'd like to add to the thoughts on that are, I've lived and worked in many parts of the world over the years. And one thing that always strikes me, it's about perspective. There's never a truth in anything. There's only perspective. And being able to bring different perspectives into the room, into a business, absolutely helps. It broadens the business, it broadens the thinking, and it broadens the performance. You don't have to look at the multiple studies on the performance of businesses with broader, balanced gender demographics. They perform better. When you look at international businesses, when you have leadership from the geographies that are integral in driving your business, it will improve. So for us as business leaders, it's absolutely essential that we engage that and we pull them, not just at an operational level, not just at a country level, but to the most senior level in leadership positions in organizations. As a hope here, I truly hope as an industry that we've learned. So the fact that we've changed the rule book, that we don't allow ourselves to slide down to a lower standard. Because if we do, we're going to kill our industry for sure, going forward in terms of public perception. So it's absolutely essential that all of us as an industry continue to drive safety and not allow us to make do and okay, let's just drop the standard, let's not worry quite so much about it. So it's up to us to deliver a high standard to ensure the safety and the integrity of the assets and the operations that we have.
Rod, you're on the front line. Is Trump helping you, or is he, or is it hurting the image of the industry by reducing the other regulations?
I would just say that anytime there's a perception that there's less focus on safety, less focus on the environment, it draws scrutiny. I mean, it will definitely increase the scrutiny on the business and saying, you got to pass, you bought your way out of these rules, you did all those things, and I agree. If there's any indication through incidents or anything whatsoever that we've gone backwards, it's going to be bad.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we simply, this is our reputation we're talking about. It's our industry, and we've got to fight for it. We can't allow that negativity to come through after all of the hard work the industry's put in to increase safety standards. So it's up to us to publicise the successes. It's up to us to demonstrate to the public, the wider public, that this is a safe industry and this industry is evolving for the better continuously.
David Currie, anything to add to that?
I would just add something that came up, and I don't know how many people were at the OTC banquet on Sunday night, but it was our industry, and I can't remember who the speaker that said it, but if you look at statistics at lost time injuries and what have you, the oil field is safer than the medical profession and education. We have fewer incidents than either one of them. And when I looked around the room, we were surprised. And so we're obviously not telling our own story very well.
Thank you. Just a question here from Charlie Guthrie. Through mergers, the industry is more global than ever, with an increasingly transient workforce. How are the panel seeing digital solutions making this smoother? Alfie, you got a view on this? Put you on the spot? Well, the answer may be no, I haven't got a view on it.
No, I don't think I have. I think, but someone said it earlier, we've always been a moving workforce. We've been a moving workforce. As a youngster, I travelled the world in the oil and gas industry. So I don't think it's new.
Can we utilize the technology better, though? I mean, do we have to travel as much? Can we use the data we've all got to make it a much easier process, or is it just a matter of the basics are still the basics and the rest will just support?
I think it's back to what Tom was talking about earlier, and some of the technology, and also the technology that we heard about that Equinor are looking at with this ROVs or AUVs, as you call them today, the diverless systems and the remote systems that are going to be self-contained in a seabed. So maybe the need for the numbers of people to be moving around the world will decrease, and we'll be able to make much better use of that technology.
Okay. Thomas, a view on that? Mergers, the industry is more global than ever with an increasingly transient workforce. How are the panels seeing digital solutions making this smoother?
I think that digital solutions are key. If we look at efficiency gains, now we've gone to a point, and we also do it every day, Skype calls, video calls. I think that just in itself, connecting people, has created efficiency. The next stage here, from a digitalization perspective, the fundamental kind of move we all need to do is common data environments. Yeah? So as long as we can access the data globally, we're going to see another step up in efficiency gains. And ultimately, I think we'll then end up with teams who are spread around the world, but actually working together on tasks. So we're seeing that move gradually. And as I said before, it is incremental, but it's towards the target where we actually connect the workforce. Just to add to one of those things, back to the innovation part, if you want a solution, you have a challenge. If you ask 2 people what are their views, you'll get a certain level of innovation around it. If you ask 10 people in the office, you get something more. If you connect everyone in your organization from a Subsea perspective, connect 14,000 people and say, what are the ideas coming up, and actually have a tool that allows you to screen and actually see those ideas around, then you're starting to see the power of what digitalization can do. That's the point we're getting to, and I think rapidly over the next couple of years, where we actually interconnect then also with other companies, other businesses. So I think we'll see a very fast move over the next couple of years.
I think it varies dramatically on the way you implement these solutions. And you're right, fast is the right way to do it. If you're not failing, then you're not at the cutting edge. And if you're not willing to turn around quickly and do it again, then you're doing it wrong. I think the thing is to take this and chop it into bite-sized chunks and make sure you plan this properly and not fail after 6 months, fail after 6 days and do it again.
Kind of coming from a technology development perspective, this is a daily challenge. And because we've grown up in an environment where it is get it right first time, we seldom want to accept that we're about to fail. So in the technology development, we do see the program run and run and run, hoping to find the solution in the end. And it's actually, you need to do it top down. You need to cut then and say, this is not working. Just cut it out, because if not, you grow really the love to the prospect that you're working on.
I'll just add to that. I think culturally, we don't like failure. We've been trained against it. That's what we've got to change. Yeah? We've got to change the culture of that failure is a bad thing, because if you're pushing hard, inherently, you have to fail. And that's what we've got to do.
I guess the last piece on that, obviously in the digital domain, and as you're looking at internal toolkits and systems and development, absolutely, you have to have that pace. When we get to cutting metal and running hydrocarbons, clearly we can't afford to fail. So the challenge for us as we develop technologies is creating and getting that level of assurance that we understand the technical aspects of what we're doing differently, whether it's through change of design, and as we're seeing innovations in additive manufacturing technologies, understanding how that technology actually operates at a hardware level is key to ensuring that we can continually manage and deliver safe systems.
I think there was a high pucker factor when you said failure to this group, because just exactly that. I mean, when we think about failure, we think about Macondo, we think about things like that. And you know, in our business, we've got got things underwater. We're on live systems. We've got people on amusement park rides. We mentioned that earlier. We do work for NASA, and so that whole thing, failure is not an option coming from NASA, but it really is. We need to revise how we think about failure, and because it's not about final article going out and failing once it's in service. It's about the iterative process of developing the right answer for that problem we're trying to work on. So it is. It's maybe it's a little bit of semantics, but I will tell you that I think everybody had that release or loss of primary containment or all these things we have. That's the first thing that comes to our mind on this panel. What we see.
Do you need a different culture then in the industry or in a particular business so that there is an acceptance of failure in certain parts, but absolutely keep driving that safety issue and failure is not an option in other parts of the business? Because that's quite contradictory and it's quite tricky as well, isn't it?
It is, but we've got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
The company I work for, Lloyd's Register, we're a little bit interesting and different in that we are a for-profit business, so we're a commercial business. But we have one shareholder, and that shareholder is the Lloyd's Register Foundation. And they're a charity. And their vision and remit is to make the world a safer place through better engineering and education. So part of what the foundation do and the work that we fund is to drive innovation and looking at the next wave of technologies, whether it's storage systems, whether it's cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, to understand what are the risks so that as we bring those technologies to market, we're able to help de-risk that process and understand exactly how they will operate.
Please, Thomas.
No, and I think we're getting kind of caught on this failure, because if you look at failure as a disaster, it's unacceptable. So that's not what we're talking about. I think one of the issues we have, especially with disruptive technologies, is you want to introduce the disruptive technology in a safe manner. There you need acceptance for a certain level of risk to actually take it into use, although you're taking it into use in a different application. Failure there is more getting feedback from the first use, the low-risk application, to take the step to actually get the full value of the technology. I think we struggle with that concept because, again, you want it optimum first time, which means that you pay the premium to do the change and you're not getting the full value. So I think in that instance, there is a way to go still for the industry, and actually this first-use application, it is a struggle.
Okay. Any last questions? Or yes, sir. If you could tell us your name and where you're from, that would help as well, please.
So digitalization is just one aspect of the outcome. So I'd like to make a visualize
I think we talked earlier about cost and how that fits into the digitization and new technology. I think cost is a poor measure. I think what we're very bad at is quantifying the gains that new technology provides. And at the moment, if you look at the industry literature, that's one of the blockers that we see is we're struggling to quantify what it is. So we've got to break it down into what efficiencies we add, what production we can maintain or increase, and we've got to be able to quantify that. And everybody's working towards doing that, but I don't think we're there yet.
I'd say relevance. I'll go back to relevance. Is that I'd hate to see the world economy go backwards because we no longer trust oil and gas. And if you don't think it's possible, think about we've destroyed more hydroelectric power in the United States than we built. We're tearing down nuclear power. There is no guarantee that if the society doesn't like what we're doing and we're not doing it in a way that's acceptable, we will start to go backwards too, just purely on the social mandate. So I think we need to have that relevance. We need to have the trust of society. We need to have their endorsement, and I think that's going to be easier to achieve when we put the best technology forward.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, it really is about how can we deliver on the energy transition? How can we achieve that? How can we help lift the global requirements and deliver energy to Asia, to Africa, to South America, and elsewhere, and doing that in a way that doesn't damage the planet further? And how can we actually claw back on that. So that's really what 4.0 can give us, and being able to create a vibrant, exciting industry and a great place to work is what we want to be able to achieve through them.
Okay. Anybody anything else to add? I think we'll wrap up there because it's 9 o'clock. We said 9 o'clock on the dot, so we've run out of time. Maybe in future we can use artificial intelligence to create new panelists and a new facilitator so you don't have to ask them to listen to us. They may know how to click the buttons as well, yeah, indeed. On your behalf, I'll thank Alfie, David, Thomas, Steve, and Rod. I thought that was fascinating. I'm sorry if you asked the question and we didn't get time to do it, but I didn't want to rush it. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you to you for coming, and those who have skived at work for the last 2 hours because their bosses have been on the panel and watched it online. And I must also thank our sponsors, because, of course, without the sponsors, we can't actually do these events. So Ace Winches as platinum sponsor, Alfie and his team, thank you very much indeed. Gold sponsor, Lloyd's Register. And silver sponsors, Leidos, SQA, DeepMiner, and Bill and his team at ICR. And, of course, to Travel Leads for their assistance with the reception this morning. If you've enjoyed it, I'm available for birthdays and bar mitzvahs. If you haven't, please just buy the book and I'll be happy. I hope you have a wonderful day. Yeah, there'll be book signings. Yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day and rest of OTC, and I hope it's very productive for you and you manage to get through that permafrost and get some good deals done. Have a great day and thank you.